Hi, I'm Bob McCoskrie. Welcome to Straight Talk. Yeah, sorry, we were a little late starting. Major technical glitch at 1 minute to 8. Don't you hate technology when it doesn't work? But anyway, welcome to episode 43. Tonight we're going to talk about computers that don't work, perky politicians and how much are they really worth. Has same-sex marriage made no difference to our culture? That's what some commentators argue. Has gender ideology reached its tipping point? We'll have a look at the Woke Up New Zealand site, and if we've got time, which I doubt it, because we started late, we'll look at the Ram Raid bill. Plus, we've got our Speedy spot quiz to find out the panellists' views on a few controversial issues of the day. Without further ado, because they have been waiting very patiently, is our panel. And firstly, we've got Rodney Hyde coming deep from the dark bowels of the South Island. Where have we got you this week, Rodney?
Indeed, we're in Central Otago and we're waiting for the ski fields to open. Should have opened Saturday, a few days late.
Okay, too warm. That's that global warming for you. I told you about that. And then beside you, Rex Ardar. How are you, Rex?
Very good, thank you, Bob.
Good. And below you, Mel Taylor, who's up the other end of the country in the far north, enjoying the beautiful sun, aren't you?
Absolutely. It's been fantastic. Now, there's actually been quite a bit of rain, but that's okay. It's that time of year.
Okay. And beside you is Simon O'Connor, who has joined the Green Party.
Well, there's a growing list of gaps, although, we have to send our sympathies to Marama Davison tonight, obviously with her diagnosis, but her aside, there's plenty of gaps in the Green Party to be filled.
Okay. I think your IQ level may be too high. And finally, Bruce Logan in Christchurch. How are you, Bruce?
I'm very well.
Okay.
So you get a job with the Greens.
Yeah. Everyone's got to speak slightly faster so that we get through the program tonight because we started slightly late, okay? And everybody's just logging on to make sure we're here. Actually, no, good numbers already. Am I getting comments coming through here, team? Not yet? Okay, that's okay. Okay, joke of the week, team. This is the funniest thing you will see all week. It's a plane. The problem is it doesn't fly. It looks like a plane, but it don't fly. Have you ever been on Air Force One, Simon?
No, I've never been on it, but granted, what's the point? It doesn't go anywhere.
No, I was going to actually show a photo of it in the air, but I thought that would be fake news. Rodney, you must have been on Air Force One.
No, I've been on the Hercules a couple of times when they've ferried MPs around, but it's sad, isn't it? Because we have so underfunded our Defence Force, and then we make fun of them when they can't get things to work because we haven't funded them.
And my understanding was that it started, Helen Clark started the whole underfunding. Would that be a fair summation, Rodney?
No, she disbanded the Combat Air Wing, and of course was no friend of the military, but the underfunding is decades long. So it's very sad. She did coin the phrase that we lived in a benign strategic environment, which of course is tosh, but there you go.
Okay. Mel, Jim just messaged me to say he's watching, so that's good. You've got him well trained. That's your husband.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So he should be.
Well done. Well, he shouldn't. He should be doing the dishes. Now, the video of the week, and this is a real news item from Los Angeles, and I wanted to play it because, well, it is Pride Week in New Zealand. So this is a real news item. Especially watch the name of the council member speaking.
LA City Council members Hugo Soto Martinez and Nithya Raman were on hand today to help remove the signs. They say the no cruising and no U-turn signs were put up in the 1990s to prevent people in the gay community from meeting up with other gay people.
I was also surprised that these U-turn signs were still up. And at first, they seem a little, okay, it's just a no U-turn sign. But when you learn the history of it and you realize that these were used to profile gay people, it's so important that we have these removed.
The LA City Council members say the signs were put up after the gay community began to grow and because there was a gay bar in that area.
Yeah, okay, so we're going to take down all U-turn signs because apparently they're homophobic. I actually looked up the history of why the signs were put up, and it was actually because of boy racers swarming around certain streets, and so they were trying to stop that. But anyway, it sounds like a good story. Okay, I want to get straight into the spot quiz, and so who shall I start with? Rodney. Let's go around the circle. Our first question for tonight is, do you return the shopping trundler? Rodney?
Yes, I do. And I don't know why, but I just feel obligated to do so.
Okay. Rex?
Yeah, always.
Always? Okay. Mel?
Yes, I do, and I'm quite pedantic about teaching all the kids to do the same.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is because there was a discussion on Talkback last week about it and got everybody exercised about it. Simon, do you?
I do, and look, I'll even take other people's trolleys back with their permission if they need a little bit of assistance. And my OCD is such that I'll make sure the small ones are not put where the big ones are.
Wow. Bruce?
Yes, I do. But maybe we have to follow what happens in France. You pay your €2 in the slot to get the trolley.
Yeah.
You don't get your €2 back until you put the trolley back.
Okay. Well, the answer to this one is actually no, you shouldn't, because my first job was actually in Papatoetoe at Three Guys, Goubets. And every Thursday night for 99 cents an hour, I was the trolley boy and returned those trolleys. So if you return the trolleys, you're actually doing someone out of a job. You guys all feel bad now? Okay, next question. Can you speak Māori? Rodney?
Not a word.
Ka pai. Rex?
No.
Gee. I think this program's going to finish early. Mel?
Little bits. It was actually compulsory in early childhood to be able to speak some.
What, when you were going through it or when you were teaching there?
As a teacher, you're expected to teach the kids and sing in te reo and stuff like that.
Oh, wow. And lots of words or just a few, greetings and...
Well, from memory back then, it was about 20% of the vocabulary should be Māori. Or te reo, yeah.
Okay. Simon, with a green screen behind you, you must be definitely speak Māori?
I do a little bit, actually. I studied Maori at Auckland University, both written and oral. My only problem is I've also learnt multiple other languages, including Fijian, which means when I do try to speak Maori, I end up speaking Fijian more fluently. So a bit of a weird world. So I'll stick to Latin and English.
The Naka. Bruce?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. Okay, I know what we're going to be doing at the next retreat. Next question. Do you think the speed limits should be raised to 120 kilometres per hour as proposed by Simeon Brown? Rodney, you'd be a big fan of this, wouldn't you?
No, I'm not. I don't know what roads he's thinking of. Where you have that road at 110, it's possible. You could possibly go to 120. But the roads we have, 100's more than enough in my humble view.
Okay. Rex?
On suitable roads, yes, if they're well designed, well constructed, good 2-lane highways, it's fine.
If it's got the wire cutters down the middle?
Not necessarily.
Okay. Mel?
Yeah, same. I agree. It should be on certain roads.
Certain roads. Simon? Well,
Yeah,
actually,
only on a
sorry,
couple of
before
roads
you
that I
answer
can-
this, Simon, I just want to say in your car, you'd be lucky to get up to the 50-kilometre speed limit.
I'm an ambitious
seen it.
Man. My little car wants to try. Oh no, when I think of like the new motorway to walk with, or the Waikato Expressway, 120 is fine, but very few other roads I could think of in New Zealand could cope with that.
Okay. And Bruce, I mean, my father was a
Yes.
speedster, so I have a suspicion with your BMW that you would be a speedster.
Well, I'm not, but however, roads that are suitable, the barrier down the middle, 2 lanes, then possibly, but otherwise, no.
Okay. Has anybody ever driven on the autobahn?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. It's unlimited, isn't it, in Germany?
Yes, yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
Okay.
And France, it's pretty fast as well.
Yeah.
Italy, the autostrade. You'll be zipping along at 160 k's, and next minute another car comes flying past you. So what the?
I know. Okay. Have you eaten quinoa recently? And I didn't write this question. It was written by Gordon. Rodney, have you eaten? And the reason I asked this team is because I ate it last week. My wife made me eat it, and actually I enjoyed it. So, Rodney, have you eaten any quinoa lately?
Not to my knowledge. I don't know what it is.
I bet you don't even know how to spell it either.
I do.
In fact, you're probably growing it out the back of your property, aren't you? Don't they grow it there?
No, we're too busy. We're too busy growing rabbits.
Oh, okay. Rex, have you had quinoa lately?
No.
No, not woke enough. Mel?
No, I haven't. But did it take you a while to figure out how to pronounce it?
Yeah. Well, the funny thing was I started to spell it to Gordon as he wrote the question up, and then he started writing it like this. And I said, just leave it like that because then everyone will know what we're talking about. Quinoa, yeah. Simon, you must have eaten it because you're quite woke.
Well, the household often is, but no, not recently. I think since you've started talking about it, we've been put off it.
Okay, yeah. It was actually, who said it was woke? It was David Seymour because didn't think it should be served up for school lunches. Bruce, you're quite cultured, French.
Every now and then, Mary gives me a bit. Yes.
Okay. Right, let's go in the opposite direction for this one. Actually, I'm going to start with Simon on this one. Should we be welcoming representatives of the Chinese government with open arms? What do you reckon, Simon?
No. There's always nuance there. Of course, yes, welcome them here for trade, but let's have some pretty robust conversations with them about all the abuses, both in China and here in New Zealand.
Okay, Bruce?
No, I think it's when you dine with the devil, you use a long spoon. And I think maybe we should have a long spoon when we're dining with the Chinese too.
Interesting imagery. Mel?
Definitely not, and it sets off a few alarm bells, to be honest.
Okay. Rex?
No, I agree with Simon.
Okay, and Rodney?
No, I welcome them with open arms. Do I think they're a totalitarian repressive regime? Indeed, I do. Should we be suspicious of their motives and what they're up to? Absolutely. But I'm a great believer in dialogue and in talking and in getting to know each other. And things are always worse if you're not talking with your neighbour than if you are talking to them. And I think the same goes for diplomacy.
Okay. Bruce, what's your favourite sport to watch at the upcoming Olympics?
Well, I think long distance running.
Did you used to do
1,500 metres, marathon, I think would be my favourite.
Okay. Did you ever do it?
Oh, I've run those distances in my youth, yes, but
have you? Okay. Not lately.
Not in the last week or two, no.
No, okay. Simon, favourite sport at the Olympics?
I'm more of it's broad. I'm a track and field man, so any of those events I quite enjoy watching. And clearly I put the green screen up, Bob, to hide all the gold medals and that I've won over the years, out of humility.
And certificates. Mel?
Nothing in particular. I actually don't watch them. I haven't watched them for ages.
Oh, bah humbug. Rex?
It's a tie between swimming and boxing. There'd be those two.
Okay. Rodney?
Well, I don't watch them, but if I were to watch them, funny enough, I'd be with Rex. I'd watch the swimming and the boxing.
Okay. And it's diving for me. I always find it quite amazing, especially if they mistime it and do a belly flop. Now, this actually leads into one of our questions. Do you think politicians, actually, I'll come to you, Rodney. Do you think politicians are overpaid or underpaid or about right? Rodney, what do you reckon?
There's no answer to that question. On the one hand, they should be paid nothing, and on the other hand, you can't pay people enough. So it's an impossible question and you always have a sort of a compromise.
Yeah.
I myself would like to see their pay tied and leveraged off productivity growth in the New Zealand economy.
Yeah.
And so I'd have them starting out with nothing. And if they manage to get us to say 5% productivity growth, they'd be paid $1 million a year. I'd be more than happy for that.
Okay. We actually come back to this in a minute. So, Rex, are they overpaid, underpaid, or about right?
Oh, about right. About right.
Okay. Mel?
Yeah, I think last time we discussed this, I agreed with the pay rise that they were looking at.
Yeah. Simon? You got no beef in the game now?
No, well, I'm a little bit like Rodney because not so much about the incentive side. I like the concept, but look, maybe I'll phrase it in the negative. If you don't pay people well enough, you're going to basically end up, usually from the left, people who have never had a better job than being in Parliament, and coming from the right, you're going to end up with, if you will, an array of aristocrats, people who have got so much wealth already. So you don't want that. In other words, you need to pay politicians enough to grab the middle New Zealanders. So are they paid enough at the moment? Yes.
Okay, Bruce?
Yes, I don't think they're overpaid. I think they probably deserve what they get. It's a hard job, short term. No, I think they're not overpaid.
Okay. Let me just show you just a couple of quick graphs, because this actually leads straight into our first topic anyway, and that is about whether politicians are a bit too perky, getting too many perks. Here's a graph actually showing what our Prime Minister gets compared to all the rest of the public sector, and you'll see there that he gets one of the lowest salaries, even though he oversees all those areas. I mean, look at that third right one is TVNZ, Transpower, Te Whatu Ora, and then compared to the private sector, it's even worse. The Prime Minister is getting way less. Now, they have just been given a pay rise, so there we are. Prime Minister is currently getting $500,000. But if you're an ordinary MP, you're getting $181,000. I mean, Rodney and Simon, I really wanted to ask you sort of more on this one because you've experienced it. You've been in politics. I mean, it's not a typical, normal 40-hour-a-week job, is it? You are working super long hours. Simon, I mean, last year you would have been pulling, 19, 20-hour days?
Well, not quite that many. You could probably, at an extreme, you'd reckon up about 100 hours in a week. But I think the important thing to stress is that it's also something we choose. It's something we choose to do. So I think that has a major factor, or rather a bearing on how much people are paid. I think for myself, look, perfectly good wicket. I was doing quite well in the private sector beforehand, thanks very much. But it was something I chose to do. And I suppose the other thought is you should still be, if you're a member of Parliament, very conscious that you're still being very, very well paid, remunerated and perked, if you want to use that term, than many New Zealanders. And I think that's really important as well. But no, there are long hours, but we choose it. And that includes the Prime Minister as well. So that tempers the approach. They choose to be there.
Okay, I want to come to you, Rodney, because you are still affectionately known as the perk buster. You got rid of a lot of the perks when you were in Parliament. Here's just a quick graph which shows from the Prime Minister down to an ordinary MP. So the salary down the left, and then you get super, and then there's perks, and then there's allowance. And if you're on a select committee or you're a junior whip, then you also get a bit extra. Some of those perks include paying for donations, raffle tickets, flowers and meals. There's also clothes and grooming, apparently, and apparently $4,500 to put an alarm system in your house. So that's very nice. Rodney, you got rid of a whole lot of the perks. What was the motivation with all of that? Did you just think it was bloated?
I think it lacked transparency and it lacked accountability. And it was also open to rorts. So, for example, when I started there, an MP could claim overnight accommodation and just write the amount that he or she paid. they didn't have to produce a receipt because a civil servant couldn't question an MP's account of what they spent to stay the night at the hotel. And amazingly, I think from memory, something like 80% of the claims were for the full amount. So they were lying. And I found that highly offensive. I also didn't like the fact that rather than be upfront with the public and say this is what we're going to be paid, the MPs under the two-party system rewarded themselves with perks that were never revealed, and you could never find them out. There were just an alarming number of them, and they were done as a device because, aren't we all poorly paid? Yes, but the public would be angry if we gave ourselves a pay rise, so let's give each other another perk. It's my view, like in any job, you should be paid a salary and you should be paid for work-related expenses, full stop.
Right. Okay. Rex, the argument is if you pay peanuts, do you get monkeys? Is there any truth to that? Actually, I was going to look at that graph and just see if lecturers at Otago University is on that list. Where is it? No, it's not there.
Well,
no, okay, you're not on that list, Rex.
Once upon a time, it used to be called the Higher Salaries Commission, and they did also determine, as well as judges and politicians and senior civil servants, lecturers' salaries, but that was stopped about 30 years ago. I find a lot of this quite sort of petty and quibbling about it. And the fact is the Remuneration Authority sets these according to criteria that are set out in the Act, Section 18, which I won't bother reading out. But it's set by this specialist authority, and that authority has to set a whole lot of salaries for Human Rights Commission, Commerce Commission, Waitangi Tribunal, Law Commission, disputes tribunals, mayors, a whole range of things. So they have the expertise, but if whatever they determine the politicians are deserving, they do so according to statutory criteria.
Right. Okay, Mel, what do you think? Do you think they should be paid more so we get better quality?
I think that regardless, there needs to be transparency, and Rodney was talking about it before, honesty and transparency, because politicians don't really have a really good name anyway, and a lot of people are concerned about the money they make or the perks that they get. So I think if they can show absolute transparency everywhere, people will be okay with it. I mean, we've got our Northland MP, and he has to go down to Wellington regularly. I imagine it would be really expensive. So they have to accommodate for where people live and where they need to be and how often they have to be in Wellington. So as long as it's fair and just and, transparent, I think it's okay.
Okay, Bruce, what do you think? More or less or about right?
Well, I'm not too fussed about perking pollies, but the one thing that I did notice was there is an allowance, an accommodation allowance for people who live out of Wellington to use the money for rent in Wellington. Now, I see that some people have been using that to pay their mortgage, which seems to me to be a bit on the nose, and not to say dishonest. I don't think any reason why a taxpayer should be paying a politician's mortgage if that in fact is happening, and I'm told that it is. But I understand Rodney was relatively successful, and the perks are much fewer than they used to be.
Okay.
There's Bob, can I just mention one thing?
Yep.
Well, one of the interesting things that has happened also is that it used to be that the perks were outside the purview of the Higher Salaries Commission or the Remuneration Authority. And so what was happening was the Remuneration Authority was blind to the perks, and the perks were able to be given literally through cabinet. And now what happens, and this is what I'm quite proud of, is that the Remuneration Authority looks at the whole package.
Yep.
And I think that's been a great advance. And that alone has achieved a level of transparency that we didn't have hitherto. At the same time, all the perks that concerned me have been gotten rid of.
Okay, and actually, I was having trouble sleeping, so I read the that report that you're referring to, 52 pages of it, which is actually where I found these two graphs. And I actually thought that they did a pretty good argument of comparing the salaries of our politicians with actually politicians over the ditch and in other countries. And look, we're certainly not spoiling our MPs, that's for sure. And I know some of the hours that they do pull. Let's just have a look at the question, some of the comments. Jim didn't like the comment about the fact that I said he should be doing the dishes because that's sexist. I'm not sure if that goes in our favour or the women's favour. Lee says, return the trolleys to the bays that are provided. The trolley boys take it from there. Well, that's true. That's the case. I don't know if they actually had trolley bays in my day. Weren't many cars in my day. Stephen says, great, I can leave my trolley around to keep Bob employed. Yeah, that's my part-time job. Rosie says, no, this is the speed limits. The faster you go, the faster the mess. But Kirsten says 120 miles per hour is about 185 kilometres per hour. Yeah, a bit fast. No, we were referring to 120 kilometres. Our friend Elliot says, quinoa is part of the bitumen on our roads. Really? Darwin says, good on you, Mel. I've got better things to do as well, not watching the Olympics, bar humbug. Nancy Margaret says MPs should be paid on performance. Hex says that list MPs should get less. Some argument for that. Kevin says some MPs work very hard, others just shine their trousers on their seats. That's not you, Simon. Jacob says Prime Minister is responsible for the welfare of the country, and so they should be paid more than CEOs. Yeah, that does surprise me. And June says, I agree with Mel regarding transparency. There seems to be a large number of seats empty during the debates in the chamber. Just before we leave politics, I did just want to play a little excerpt from the post-budget press conference. Now, the Prime Minister is away, so the current Prime Minister in the country is none other than Winston Peters. And he was asked about if the government is going to bail out the media because nothing's happened since the last Minister of Broadcasting was unjustly sacked. And so this was his response. It did amuse me.
Will there be any media reform package? What's happened to that?
Well, I'm not the minister in charge, am I?
Is acting Prime Minister and someone who comments...
But acting Prime Minister cannot remember everything. If you'd have come and sent me a text an hour ago and saying, I'm going to ask you this question, I'd have come down here fully informed, having consulted the Minister, or the two ministers that are concerned.
You were very vocal about it at the time.
Yeah, well, I want a decent media in this country. I want to make sure the fourth estate is the fourth estate. And I want to make sure that the essential part of any democracy, being held accountable, does exist. I'm wanting to see a great fourth estate back in this country.
Oh, there we go. That was lovely music to the ears, wasn't it? Anyway, I'm sure he hated every minute working with the media, and the media hated having him as Prime Minister for the day. Right, let's move on to the next topic, team. 20 years ago this month, the US allowed their first legal same-sex marriage. And the LA Times did a recent article where they said that allowing same-sex marriage has had no negative effects and only positive effects. Now, New Zealand allowed same-sex marriage from 2013, so it's been 11 years. And Rex, I'm going to come to, Bruce, I'm going to come to you first on this one. I just quickly want to show you at the time of the same-sex marriage debate, we put out a pamphlet that went around the country. And one of the things we said in the pamphlet was this, that one of the consequences would be the changing of language. And an example was how the words like mother, father, husband, wife have been banned in certain countries because now, for example, in Spain, it's progenitor A and progenitor B. In other words, we cannot say things like spouse, marriage, husband, wife. I mean, we can't even define woman. So in response to the LA Times, I'm interested to ask the panel, is it true that same-sex marriage has been allowed, but there haven't been any negative effects on our culture or society? It's just been business as usual. Bruce, Kick us off. What do you think?
Well, the LA Times has got it completely wrong. There have been tremendous consequences of same-sex marriage. I mean, same-sex marriage is a complete shift away from what was going on before, because it's a redefinition of marriage by the state. I mean, marriage wasn't the creation of the state, nor indeed of the church for that matter. And the state has had traditionally a responsibility to protect marriage and the church to bless it. That's the way Western civilization has worked. However, with the advent of same-sex marriage, there's been a huge cultural shift. And that's because the nature of the citizens to the state has changed, because the state now no longer simply determines, the state no longer actually says or protects marriage, it actually recreates marriage. It's recreated marriage. And when it's done that, it's redefined the family, and it's redefined what marriage means. And it's also reshaped the institutions of civil society. I mean, the family, traditionally speaking, has always been that major institution, the little platoon that Burke used to call them, that gave rise to our identity. We took our identity from our family. One was, and there were a multiplicity of identities from your family. You're a mother or a father or a son or a daughter or a cousin or an uncle or something, and your identity rose out of your family structure. And that spilled over into the community, and the community shared that. And by changing, and by the state saying, we know what marriage is, because that's what they've done. The state has done by saying marriage is also a same-sex deal as it is a heterosexual one, then it's a step not of protection of the marriage, but one of creation. And so the individual is, instead of being protected by the law, it now finds that the tribe is protected by the law. That is the group of people who are now defined by the state as eligible for marriage. And you get a kind of ungrounded euphemism around marriage. Remember, we had this marriage equality. Now, that was a very, very misleading euphemism, because it gave rise to a view of marriage that it was discriminatory to say that marriage between a man and woman was better than, more use than, better and for culture and society than marriage between two men or two women. And I think all that has been given concrete authentication, if you like, by what happened to Family First. Family Firsts went through four law courts for 10 years because it became illegal to advocate the natural family. That is, the family now that we understood to be the natural intergenerational family, which is the pivot of society and order, couldn't be seen as any different from any other. And that must bring about huge social disintegration, which it has done. There's so much more one could talk about it, but that's enough.
Okay, well done. Rex, I think have you written papers on this or commentary around?
Yeah, years ago, when I wrote an op-ed piece for Stuff and also New Zealand Herald, it earned me a petition to have me sacked from Otago University for my homophobic views. But anyway, that's by the by. First, I wouldn't take anything that's published in the LA Times very seriously. Not anything written by a social psychologist. You only have to hear what Jordan Peterson thinks of social psychologists. So don't take that study very seriously. I looked at the stats. 2.5% of all the marriages in New Zealand are same-sex marriages since it came into effect. So it's only had a tiny uptake. Now, what would you infer from that? That it's not a big deal, not having a great effect, perhaps. I'm going to use that word you didn't like a few sessions ago, the hortatory effect again. This is the broader kind of message it sends to society. The gay marriage, same-sex marriage was important, not because there was a vast latent demand of same-sex couples wanted to be married, but that by giving same-sex relationships the imprimatur of marriage, this is the ultimate tick or social imprimatur or endorsement of same-sex relationships. So it's a major victory in the culture war to have marriage include same-sex marriage. That's really its major effect. And we won't really know what effect it's going to have, such a major change to an institution for probably, who knows, 30, 40 years, not just 10 years.
Yeah. Okay. Rodney, what do you think? Because I suspect you may have changed a little in your thinking.
3 points, as there's so many you could make, but the first point is, to my eternal shame and discredit, I voted for the stuff. And for that, I feel terrible. Yeah, 2 things it's done. One is it's destroyed marriage, because marriage is between a man and a woman. And if you say it's something else as well, then you've destroyed marriage. So that has to be a hugely negative thing. But here's a second very subtle one with damning consequences. And that is that when they teach the birds and the bees at school, they also are obligated to teach sodomy and other ways of having sex. And they have to do that because we've made it equivalent. And that's a direct consequence of same-sex marriage.
Okay. Thank you for your honesty. Appreciate that. Simon, you're back on. Everything crashed in your house, didn't it? No, we can't hear you. You back on? No, we can't hear you at the minute. We'll come back to you in just a sec. You check those buttons again. It's not solid ground, okay? This is Straight Talk. Your mic should be on. He left his mic off last week, but we'll check tomorrow morning at 8 whether he's learnt. Mel, what do you think?
I think it is having an impact, especially on the young people. We have had, in the past, we've had a young person make a non-formal complaint to their social worker, because just in a discussion with my husband, he said, well, do you believe in same-sex marriage? And my husband said, no, I believe that marriage is between a man and a woman. And so this young person made a complaint to the social worker. So for young people, the language is changing and what they believe is acceptable and unacceptable. And we're just classed as, boomers that are into old-fashioned traditional ways that don't apply. And that's actually really sad, because old-fashioned traditional values are what actually helps a family unit the most.
Okay. And Simon, we got you back?
I don't know, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, you poor things. Sorry, of all the times that my laptop's decided a driver update, and of all the drivers, the Bluetooth. Right, marriage. Well, look, a couple of things. I don't think the sky's fallen in, but that's not me sidestepping or stepping away from the wider issue, because I think it has had a negative effect. Firstly, it's the state decided, it's a bit like Bruce was saying, the state stepped in and decided it by law was going to define something rather than by a human experience, which so much else in society is. Secondly, it's been very detrimental to conscience rights. So if you're an individual now who wants to become, say, a marriage celebrant, if you don't affirm this ideological position, then you cannot become a celebrant. So conscience rights have been affected. But it's also opened the gateway to further absurdities now, and Mel and others were touching on the gender ideology and so forth. In other words, once you start redefining something at whim rather than based on an observed structure of reality, you end up in all sorts of strange places now. And so you're seeing that with how people define themselves, how they want to relate to children. The list goes on and on and on. So I want to be really, really clear, though, to your viewers. It's not saying that the gay marriage question has caused all of this, but it's a part of the sequence. And it was sort of a logical, slow progression from there. And it's where we end up today.
Okay, let's just have a look at some of the comments here. There's been quite a few coming through. Liz says, Jim should do the dishes. It's in the Bible. Read 2 Kings 21:13. Oh, if anybody's got that, can they print it, send it through to me? I don't know what it says. Gerald says, no one will tell me what words I can use and not use. Good on you. Oh, there we are. I better just show that. Gerald says that. Rosie says, I believe that everyone should be allowed to be with the person that they love. Hex says the whole same-sex marriage thing was a setup by the progressives and now they are targeting children in songs, books, mainstream media and the state. Brian says gay relationships don't produce children. Sam says hit it on the nail. Bruce, shame on the LA Times. Nancy Margaret says same-sex marriages have taken a sledgehammer to our families. First they wanted civil union, not marriage. In a short time that changed and they wanted marriage. Starts with the thin edge of the wedge. Stacey says, we forgive you, Rodney. Lee says, the only good thing I get out of the newspaper is fish and chips, and even then I take them with a pinch of salt. Right. Ricky, actually, I'll come back to Ricky's in a sec because it's quite an interesting one. Hanamine says, well said, Rodney. Craig says, has anybody considered heterosexuality has also destroyed marriage? How many last these days? Not that many relatively anyway. Well, that's true, actually. Even heterosexuals haven't done a good job with marriage, but that's a problem when you involve humans. It's never perfect, even if the design is perfect. Ben says, good insight, Rodney. And Jacob says, your repentance is accepted, Rodney. Appreciate your honesty. We do. I just wanted to ask this one to you, Mel, and I'll duck after I've asked it. Can I ask a question? Do you think politics has got too emotional since more women have been in the role? This was asked of me today. I'm just going to hide. You go, Mel.
More emotional. No, I could hear my husband laughing in the background. Yeah. Oh, my God.
Sorry to spring this on you.
I think it creates balance. Do I think all women should only be women in Parliament? Absolutely no way. Generally speaking, I think it is well equipped for males that don't get overly emotional. However, I do believe that there definitely needs to be a female touch in politics just to create some balance.
Yeah. Okay. Stephen has said, 2 Kings, I will stretch out over Jerusalem the measuring line used against Samaria and the plumb line used against the house of Ahab. I will wipe out Jerusalem as one wipes a dish, wiping it and turning it upside down. So there's your exegesis for today, your biblical theology lesson. And because we have to do the dishes and we have to make the coffee as well. Did you know that it says that in the Bible, you guys? Men have to make the coffee. Yep. Hebrews. Okay, next topic. Oh, actually, sorry, quick ad. The Forum on the Family is one of the premier family conferences held each year with international and national speakers and political leaders. Hosted by Family First New Zealand, the Forum brings together a national network of family-focused organisations, scholars, lobby groups, leaders, and groups who are part of a growing movement for social change to bring New Zealand to a point where families are strengthened, marriage is honoured, life is protected, and religious freedom is defended. This year's conference will again be held at the Dewdrop Event Centre in Manukau City, not too far from the Auckland Airport, on Friday, 5th of July. This year's theme is Protecting the Next Generation. It's time for all of us to push back against the harmful agendas and ideologies being targeted at our children, including the ones in the womb. And once again, we have an amazing lineup of speakers from the US, Australia and New Zealand. Now, as we did last year, on the Thursday night before the forum, we're hosting a gala celebration dinner with the theme Independence Day. Well, it is on the 4th of July, but independence is also significant for Family First. We'll explain more at the dinner. You'll also get to meet and eat with our other international speakers and hear them in a special Q&A on the night. I want to invite you to this year's Forum on the Family. It's the highlight of the year and you don't want to miss it. Arrange to be there. Book your flights today. Gather your friends. If you're concerned for our culture, our country and our families, You may be saying, well, what can I do? Step 1, attend the Forum on the Family. Last year was another sellout, so don't delay. Go to our website forumonthefamily.nz for all the information you need. Register today. Don't miss this important family conference. Let's build a culture that protects our children, the next generation. Go to forumonthefamily.nz. Register today. All right, there we are, and we certainly want people to register, come to the dinner as well. We've got some amazing speakers. It's once a year, and so really important that people are there. So register. Last time it was the last 2 years actually have been sellouts, so you don't want to miss out. Right, team, next topic, and it's a question about whether the whole gender ideology has reached a tipping point. Now, the reason I ask this is because there was new Pew research from the US, and they were finding out basically people who vote for Biden and Trump, what they think about gender ideology. And I've lost my numbering system. Oh no, it's not the one I want. Hang on, let me just find my numbers. Hang on, team. Take a break. Oh, 14. There we are. There we go. Most voters say gender is determined by the sex assigned at birth. So 65%, 2/3 of voters say basically your sex is assigned at birth, or it is at birth. 1/3 say no, it can be different. But note there that the Biden supporters are much more in favour of changing your gender, whereas Trump supporters, look at that, 90% of Trump supporters say, no, you're born a male, you are a male, you're born a female, you are a female. And then they said, what they did was they looked at the responses, because they've been polling on this since 2017 up to 2024, and it's hard to see that amongst that. But what you actually see is that the support for gender being determined by sex at birth is increasing every year. And even Democrats are becoming slightly more aware of it as well. Now, that's also the case in New Zealand. We've done polling back in 2018. If you look down the bottom of those two graphs, 54% said kids should not be taught that they can change their gender. 35% said yes in the blue. The last time we polled, which was this year, April, it had grown to 69% opposing gender ideology in schools. And one more graph before I come to you. Back in 2020, we asked, should there be a ban on the use of puberty blockers? 51 to 28 were against, supported a ban, sorry. It's now grown 62% support a ban, 19%. Only 19% support puberty blockers for young people. So all that data is suggesting that the tide is turning and that more people are starting to realise that they oppose gender ideology when they think through it. Am I right to come to that conclusion? Mel, can I come to you first? Do you think there has been a tipping point? And if there has been, what's caused it?
I definitely think there's been a tipping point, and I think it's due to a few reasons. People got sick of it being rammed down their throat, and it was rammed down in every aspect. It entered the schools, it entered books, it entered the libraries, and it came hard and fast. And then you also had you had the likes of Family First, you had the likes of independent media that started speaking up about it. And I think the more people pushed back, the more people were educated about what was actually going on, the more people were like, no, I don't want that for my children. No, it's not okay to maim and do these radical surgeries on children. So the more it was brought into the light of what was really going on in New Zealand, I think that's when, more and more Kiwis are waking up and going, not for me.
Yeah. Okay. Rex, do you agree with that?
Well, yes, to some degree. I mean, it's hard to put too much weight upon these sorts of surveys, and it is only if you do the maths, about a 20% change or rise. So but it's probably an encouraging trend. A tipping point, maybe not quite there, but an encouraging trend.
Okay. Rodney.
Yes, indeed, and I think that poll's remarkable. And I think the big thing is that we didn't understand what we were up against, because it was presented as a view that says, look, there are men who like to dress as a woman, and it's their thing, and you'd sort of say, well, we're cool about this, right? We don't mind Georgie Bayer walking around in a dress if that's, her thing. But what it's become is the destruction of womanhood. And you see that, for example, in sport, and you see that in the invasion of private women's spaces. And you see that in the language that organisations are having to use, the aggression with which women are being attacked who speak up. So it has gone from being, okay, whatever rocks your boat, to whether you're prepared to defend women or not. Woman is a concept.
Yep. Okay, and just a reminder to our audience that Rodney is coming live from his car in the middle of nowhere where there's actually no street lighting. Simon, what do you reckon?
Well, I was more worried that he was parking by his neighbours to illegally get their Wi-Fi. Only kidding. Look, I think we have to temper any enthusiasm around the polling. So if we take it as a positive that there's been a general shift, that's a good thing. But I temper it with two considerations, and I'm actually drawing on some thoughts from a Canadian thinker, Eric Kaufman, one who says a lot of this, if you will, woke, progressive, gender ideology, all of that is deeply, deeply embedded in our social structures now. So that's going to be hard to unroot. The other is, if you bear in mind where the change is happening is in the older generations now, or to put it in a different context, the young ones who have been well indoctrinated by this Marxist, progressive, woke thought, they're coming into ascendancy over the next 20 or so years. So they're going to be bringing that view with them. So I just think it's something to watch. So I wouldn't be celebrating yet.
Okay, no, fair point. Actually, I saw somebody commented through was that it was, we could argue that the media, actually, let me just show you it because if I can find it, I might have to come back to it. No, I'll come back to it. Bruce, while I find it, what do you think?
Well, yes, I find Simon's comments very helpful. Certainly, there is a growing resistance to puberty blockers and gender ideology generally. And actually, interestingly, the stats that I've seen suggest that there's also a growing resistance among younger people as well. Yeah. And I think one of the reasons for that is we're getting better educated. We've started to understand really what it is. But why I wouldn't call it a tipping point yet, because behind all of that is the whole scenario of what we call inclusion, diversity and equity stuff that shapes the way we think about ourselves. And there is this kind of idea that seeped into our psyches that somehow or other we're in the business of creating ourselves and that we can do that and shape ourselves in ways that we never dreamed of before. And that's become so deep-seated in the minds of a lot of people, it's going to be hard to shift because there's a whole ideology there that has its roots in, I would say, narcissism at least, and a whole lot of other isms that we don't have time to talk about tonight.
Okay, I mean, I just find it interesting because you've actually got the public going against what is the cultural narrative that is being rammed down on people. And I mean, as we've alluded to today, this week is Pride Week in some schools, a minority of schools. And so it is being pushed at our young people, and yet what it seems to be doing is forcing young people to actually think about the issue and actually come out strongly looking at the evidence, and the evidence is there. That's one thing that I noticed with the, there was a study out just a couple of days ago out of Germany that found that the overwhelming majority of young people detransition from their gender dysphoria or their desire to be the other sex. And the most common group of people that they found wanting to be the other sex was 15 to 19-year-old girls. So as this research comes out, Rex, I know that you said that, we shouldn't get too optimistic about it, but as the science starts to be honest about the impact of it, isn't that going to play in the favour of biology and truth?
Yeah, well, reports like the Cass report a month or so ago in the UK are landmarks in this particular battle in the culture war. So they're very helpful.
Okay. Rodney, are you surprised that even though the culture is pushing it down? I mean, I know that you've been very passionate and have worked hard in your local school to push back against it. I mean, maybe we deserve some credit, you deserve some credit that it's actually having breakthrough, that we haven't sat back and been silent.
I think Family First deserve an enormous amount of credit, and the new organisation.
I was talking about you.
Kids.
Oh, yep.
Well, I try and do my bit as a father to protect my children.
Yep.
And I also try to do my bit as a citizen, because parents are being kept in the dark. So there's no informed consent over what minors are being taught and shown in the schools. Indeed, if you take the curriculum for my daughter at age 13, if I was to do what the teacher is teaching, I would be arrested.
Yep. Conversion therapy. Yep.
No.
Okay.
Actual grooming. It's grooming.
Oh, okay. Right. Yep. Good point.
I mean, how can a teacher teach a 13-year-old girl how to submit to anal sex, how to protect herself from sexually transmitted disease, and how to lubricate herself so she's not torn? A teacher teaching that to a 13-year-old girl outside of the curriculum would be arrested, and yet that's in the recommended curriculum for 13-year-old girls.
Mel, it must, the fact that Jim got in trouble for just stating a basic fact that he believes marriage is one man, one woman, shows just how much work there is to do, though?
Yeah, it definitely does. But it's also about having conversations with these young people and not being afraid to share your point of view, and your point of view is valid. And the more they hear that, the more they may well realise that they don't have to succumb to what's mainstream or what all their friends on social media in their little bubble think is right. So it's just about education and communication.
Okay. And Simon, would you say that people in Parliament, there's a bit of a bubble there, that they're not necessarily listening to grassroots?
In this case, no, they're not listening to grassroots. It is more of an echo chamber, and it's still the loud voices of a lot of the what you call a trans right activists, or the more extreme within the LGBTIQ plus group and gender theorists, who still seem to have the ear of enough politicians that's the narrative. And those politicians, and there are some we know who don't hold these views, are cowed, encouraged, chose into silence. But this is where that shift is just incrementally happening. And I think for me, the key is we celebrate any successes, but that's not a reason for us to stop. This is a long game. We've got here because it's been a long game. And so to reverse it's going to take as long, if not longer. So, yeah. But unfortunately, I think the Parliament's bad pun with the discussion tonight, but is divorced from the reality on the ground. Try talking to any MP about the Cass report, and you'll never see them run so fast.
Okay. And just finally, Bruce, has this been a recent development, or would you say that, as Simon just alluded to, it's been building over a long period of time. And I mean, even you were warning us about it many years ago, even 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah, it has been building up over a long period of time. And I think it was Simon who said it. He said that same-sex marriage was a catalyst, but there are other things leading up to that, the whole process. And it's been going on for a very long time. When we started moving away from any kind of belief in the transcendent and that marriage was some kind of eternal contract between society and two individuals. And when we got away from that idea and thought we could rejig it, then the floodgates have to open, because anti-discrimination law becomes what controls us. And we can't discriminate because we can no longer say that marriage is ordinary marriage, or I'll call it ordinary marriage, is superior to same-sex marriage. We can't say that, even although that might be true, because discrimination law will not allow us to say that.
Yeah. Okay, team, we have gone slightly over because we started slightly late, so hopefully we haven't got past anybody's bedtime. But just finish off with some of these comments. Jacob says, get rid of the Greens and Te Pāti Māori and all will be fine in Parliament. You don't agree with that, Simon, do you? James says, this is one I was looking for. All things come with pros and cons depending on the viewpoint we hold. With that in mind, can we say this is balanced media coverage? I think James is referring to the polling that I referred to, and that was actually through Pew Research. So that's actually a independent polling company, not so much a left or a right polling company. But maybe the report was biased. Gerald says the work you guys are doing is of monumental importance. Thanks, Gerald. Matt says sex is not assigned at birth, it's observed. Quite right, Matt. Well pointed out. Craig says don't forget school's celebrating Pride Week this week. It's a long way from over. Maria says first time I've watched this live broadcast. Love the Straight Talk. We need to keep our children saved against all the evil in this world. The next generation have been targeted by the elite for the next agenda to be a pushover, no backbone men and women, no men and women, is that? Or no backbone men and women. We can't even define women. Kevin is sorry, but MMP will ensure the minority will be heard. It will get worse and repercussions will be more evident. Uwewi's got his tongue in his cheek when he says, is Rodney living with Tom Phillips in the Maricopa bushes? There's $80,000 on up for grabs there, Rodney. That would help with the house renovations. Albert says, well said, Bruce. I don't know what you said, Bruce, but well done. Wendy said, my teenagers and their friends don't subscribe to the gender madness. I've noticed kids who are into it don't have a healthy family life, often an absent or weak father. Justine says, take your kids out of school. It's evil stuff. Why would you expose your kids to it? And Wendy says, it's only apathetic or disinterested parents who are unaware of what's happening at school. Actually, in fairness, Wendy, I would say that they've done a good job of hiding it from parents. But as Rodney said, the good news is that we're getting it out and knowledge is power. Okay, team, that's it. It's 9:12. We are well over time. So thank you, everyone. And we will be back next Monday night at 8 o'clock. Register for the forum on thefamily.nz. See you, Bruce. Thanks for being on, Bruce.
Bye.
Simon, I'll see you tomorrow, 8 a.m. for Solid Ground live. That'll be fantastic. What are we talking about?
Oh, stuff. It'd be a big surprise.
Big surprise. Lots of topical issues and lots of controversy. Mal, thank you very much, and love to Jim. Make sure he's done the dishes. And Rex, thank you. Thank you. And Rodney, you can drive back home now. That'll be great. They'll be pleased to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next Monday night at 8 o'clock. Have a great week.